Hello everyone and welcome to another NARSA interview with a wee bit of a twist today, where we have a friend of NARSA and MC for our 2019 convention in Windsor, Ontario, footballing and broadcasting legend Andy Gray. Andy, thanks very much for joining us today. Now that the Euros are finished and there's a wee bit of time before the English Premiership season starts, how are you enjoying your downtime? You don't have to talk about the golf today.
Thanks, Gary. I did tell you I was useless today at golf. My mate absolutely caned me. I'm not very happy. The break has been good. I mean, it's been a while since I've been able to come home and spend some time actually at home. The last twice I've been back in the UK in the last 6 months has been for operations. So it's not really been great. So it's short because of the pandemic. I had about 4 weeks off, but I've had to spend 10 days of that in Spain so that I could qualify for coming back from Qatar and what have you. It's just a mess. And now I'm back. I've had about 2 weeks. So I'm back to Qatar on the 13th of August to start again. But it's nice to be able to go and play golf somewhere that's not 50 degrees and actually enjoy it and see my kids and my missus, who, you know, I haven't seen most of them for the best part of 18 months, really.
Yeah.
So all that's been really good to do that.
Yeah, great stuff. So when I said at the top of the interview here that there's a wee bit of a twist for today's chat, what I meant was that we're going to spend a wee bit of time talking about the Scottish Football Hall of Fame, and more specifically why you're not in it yet. I'm going to emphasise the yet part. So to provide a wee bit of background story to this for the listeners today, when you were MC for us back in 2019 in Windsor, we had some chats with, at the time, I believe it was David Tanner, like you, formerly of Sky Sports, who had mentioned to both Brian Campbell and myself that you weren't yet inducted into the Scottish Football Hall of Fame. And I thought that was quite weird, but admittedly, at the time, thinking it was strange, I didn't really give it much more thought, as we were just in the final throes of wrapping up inside of the convention, getting planning going for NARSA 2020, which was then supposed to be in San Francisco, but obviously aborted because of the worldwide pandemic, and we all know what happened after that. So then kind of fast forward couple of years, and on the 1st of May this year, I'm out driving and listening to the excellent Keys and Gray podcast, as I do every single week, and I give it regular plugs on the NARSA podcast as well. I think it's a tremendous pod. And then that day, Richard was, you guys took a couple of minutes just to walk and talk through the fact and just kind of resurrect the kind of story again a wee bit, and I thought to myself, right, whoops-a-daisy, I didn't actually do anything about that, you know, when we were spending quite some time back in 2019. It's time to do something about that. So contacted you right away. We got on the phone and literally started the ball rolling then. So just for the listeners, can you provide a wee bit of an overview of the story that you talked about that day, that you know, for heading to the museum up at Hampden, and, you know, which was basically the catalyst for this conversation to happen today?
Do you know, funny, Gary, because first of all, it's not something I ever thought about. The Scottish Football Hall of Fame. I never even thought about it once. And it was my son who came to me before NARSA, maybe the year before I went to Windsor to see you guys. And he said to me, Dad, I've just been, as he does, he looks for things from the past, and he likes to look at what his dad did and things like that. He said, I've just looked at the Scottish Football Hall of Fame. He says, you're not in it. I went, really? I said, well, maybe I don't deserve to be in it. He went, well, I've looked at who's in it, Dad. And trust me, maybe he was a wee bit biased, but he said, trust me, Dad, you really do deserve to be in it with what you've achieved, not only your career in football, but what you did in broadcasting. And I said, well, Jamie, I said, and I thought about it, Gary, and I thought, it's not for me, but for my kids and their kids and any kids in the future, it would be nice if their dad and their granddad, they could go and look at it and say, oh, look, there he is. He's in the Scottish Football Hall of Fame, because he must have been quite good. And I never thought much about it, and I left it. And then Keezy got on to me. He said, you should be calling this. And one of the lads that I knew in Qatar, a Scots lad, he phoned the guy who was in charge of it and said, you know, emailed it and said, you know, this is ridiculous. Why any reason why Andy's not in the Hall of Fame? And he just turned around and said, well, he was nominated once, he said, but it was a particularly good year that year. So he never made it. And I thought to myself, well, it must have been a really good year that year. So it went from there, and I thought, okay. So I went up to the museum later on that summer because Scottish Football had asked for me to give, would I give them or loan them my PFA Player of the Year and Young Player of the Year, being the only Scot to ever do that in English football. And I said yes. So they had them, I thought, at the museum at Hampden. And I'd never been able to go and see them. They'd been there for 10 years, I think. And I'd never gone to see them, guys, because I'd never had time. But this summer, I took my father-in-law, and I thought that would be a perfect time. You know, a proud Scot, take his father-in-law, Scottish Museum. There's his son-in-law's trophies there, proudly on show. So we go to Hampden. We go to Hampden, and we go in, and one of the guy who was checking us in, I think he was a big Rangers fan, because right away he was, oh, Andy, how are you doing? Great to see you. So it was like that, and I said, I just want to have a wee look around the museum if that's possible. He said, yeah, on you go, just start there. So we started. We kept walking round and walking round, no sign, nothing, walking round, got to the end, and I thought, okay, maybe I missed them. So one of the guys that ran the museum, he was walking past, I said, excuse me. And I told him who I was. He said, yeah, I know who you are. I said, listen. He said, did I miss my trophies, the ones that I donated to the museum so you could put them on show? And he went, no, you didn't miss them. I said, oh, right. I said, well, where are they? He said, they're in a cupboard. I went, what? He said, they're in a cupboard. So I went, okay. He said, and then he got embarrassed. Obviously, he realised what he said. He got embarrassed. He said, oh, we have to juggle things around, and we change things on a monthly basis. And I thought, well, you know, if something's good enough to be in a museum, it should stay in it. If it's something unique that only one Scot has done, it's a bit strange that you've put it in a cupboard. So anyway, I was hugely embarrassed, and my father-in-law was equally as embarrassed as me, and we quickly left Hampden and went away. And then the story started from there. And then when I met you guys, and you and Brian, and I told you this story, and you all couldn't quite believe what was on. So I did write back to the guy at the museum, and I said to him, listen, I have to be up. This was just before the pandemic. I said, if that's what you think of my trophies, my achievement, I said, would you mind delivering the trophies back to my family, who actually will look after them and won't put them in a cupboard? So at the moment, I'm still waiting on my trophies being returned to me. But the Hall of Fame thing, I mean, you guys have been terrific, and actually bringing it up, and I just thought, yeah, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe what I did, what I achieved, is good enough to be in the Scottish Football Hall of Fame. And if that is the case, then fine. Yeah. But I would hate there to be an ulterior motive why I'm not there. And you know, and if it's just purely that I wasn't good enough and what I achieved wasn't good enough, then fine. Then if they say that, then great. I would forget it. But it was good that you guys at NARSA in particular were all over it. And again, like, you couldn't quite believe what was happening. And you've gone a good way down the line to addressing it, which I thank you for hugely.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So just in the vein of not being good enough here, I'm going to just go through a couple of highlights of your career, and then the listeners can decide whether they think that's good enough based on the other criteria or the other clientele that's in the Football Hall of Fame. 1973, your professional career starts with Dundee United. You spent 2 seasons there, Player of the Year both years. 1974, Scottish Cup final runner-up. 1975, you signed for Aston Villa. 1976, you won the League Cup for Aston Villa against Everton. You're Aston Villa Player of the Year. You're the leading scorer in the First Division, the prior version of the Premiership, of course. 1976, become the first ever player to win the PFA and Young Player in the same season, the only Scotsman, as you mentioned earlier, to achieve this feat, and only 2 other players have accomplished this feat. And I was telling Leo, my son, about this yesterday in our chat, and I said only 3 players have done this, and because he was asking how big a deal you were. I says, you might have heard of the other 2. One is called Gareth Bale, and one is called Cristiano Ronaldo. We were driving at and he says, what? And I said, 3.
Not bad company. It's not bad company, Gary.
And I'm
So
sure they're the same thing as well. So then you're also, as you mentioned again, you're the only Scotsman ever to do it, of course, and one of only 3 Scotsmen to win the PFA Player of the Year alongside Kenny Dalglish and John Wark, both of whom are inducted into the Scottish Football Hall of Fame. 1979, you broke the British transfer record when you joined Wolves from Aston Villa for £1.5 million. 1980, you scored the winning goal in the League Cup final against Nottingham Forest. 1983, you signed for Everton. 1984, you scored in the FA final win against Watford. 1985, you won the English First Division title. You scored in the European Cup Winners' Cup final win against Rapid. And you're an FA Cup runner-up. I'm getting tired here, Andy. I don't know about you. 1988, you joined the world-famous Glasgow Rangers and realised a boyhood dream. And 1989, you're a championship winner. You win the Scottish Premier League, and we are runners-up in the Scottish Cup final, and you have that as well. Internationally, you played and represented Scotland at every level, from schoolboy, juvenile, under-21, under-23, 20 full international caps, scored goals at every single level, and your career marks over 600 professional games and scored over 200 goals. So, if we then talk about I'm not kidding you, Andy. Like I've got sweaty palms as I'm saying this stuff. This is just an incredible CV of a career. If you sat down, if little Andy sat down in the early 1970s and says, "What do I want to try and get? What do I want to try and achieve?" Yeah, you might have had a quarter of that on there, probably.
Yeah, quarter would have been great.
Yeah,
quarter would have been great, Gary. That really would have been. A wee boy from Drumchapel when he started at Dundee United. And I'll tell you the story. When I left to go up to Dundee for my first training session, when I left Glasgow to go and live in Diggs, it was the beginning of the season. And I left home and I said to my mum and my brothers, they said, "What do you think?" And I said to them, well, I was 17. And I said, right, I'm going to give myself 4 years to get into the first team. And if I don't get into the first team in 4 years, then I might quit and do something else. And that was my aim when I went there at 17. Not to get in the first team within 4 months, but to get in the first team after 4 years. And in that 4 years, I mean, as you say, the PFA double, before I'd even thought I might get in the Dundee United first team, was extraordinary, to be quite honest with you. No, so that was the sum total of what I thought I might have to do, is take years to get into Dundee United's team, let alone by I was 21 and things had just escalated. Oh yeah. I mean, if you'd have given me a quarter of that at 17 and said, "Well, you take a quarter of all these things," I would have said, "Give me that and I'll be really, really happy."
Absolutely. And that's the beginning of your career, because you go on to become one of the main kingpins in the beginning of the revolution, the broadcast revolution, when Sky Sport got introduced to English football, and then things just escalated from there to today. It's unrecognisable, and it's just a multi-billion-dollar industry now. Yes. How did your move into the media come once you had finished your playing career?
Do you know what? It's strange, because there was a time just before I joined Sky where I almost joined STV as Arthur Montford's successor. Would you believe?
Oh wow!
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
My really good friend and mentor at Sky, he was working in Scotland at the time before Sky had started, and he came to me when I was in the last year of my contract at West Brom. We met in England, and he says, "Listen, Arthur's quitting at the end of this season. I really think you could be good in TV." He says, I like what you do. You're infectious. You've got a nice personality about you on screen. I would love for you to come up and take over from Arthur and work there. And he said, "When you're finished." So, but then what happened? Obviously, I signed for Rangers. So then he phoned me and said, "Well, yeah, I'm sorry, you've just alienated half of Scotland by signing for Rangers." He said, "We're going to have to put that on ice for a bit." And we did. So then I had my year at Rangers, which was amazing. And then after that summer, when I left in '89, he called me again. Andy Melvin was his name, Scottish lad from Aberdeen, genius. I mean, Sky owe him so much, because he set the bar and he set the standards and that they had. And he called me and says, what are you doing? I said, well, I've left Rangers. I'm not doing anything really. He says, right, there's a new satellite station starting next February. So that was like 6 months. Yeah. And I'm thinking, what the hell do I do between now and February? Luckily, a mate of mine was managing Cheltenham. He said, why don't you come and give the town a boost and, you know, help me? And I thought, yeah, I'll do that for 6 months. So I did. And then joined the new satellite station in February 89, I think. No, February 90. February 90. I went and joined BSB, and the rest, as they say, is history. There was a couple of years there, and then Sky took over, and there was a merger. And that was at the time when I was assistant to Big Ron Atkinson at Villa. I really thought I was going to go into coaching, and I thought I was going to go down that route. And I was doing the 2 jobs at the same year. It was tough, it was hard work. And I was flying up to Scotland a lot of weekends and days to do the football and things like that. And then back to Birmingham to coach. So it was tough. And at the end of the year, Sky got the contract. They won the contract. So they came to me and said, you know, you can't do both jobs. We want you to come full time. I went to see Big Ron, and he said, do it, go do it. He said, you know, unless you seriously want to hang around for a while, I'd go do it. And I was excited. It was the beginning of a huge sea change in the way football was covered. And I was going to be given the carte blanche to basically do what we like. It was fantastic. So I decided to do that, left Villa, went full time with Sky in 91, I think it was. 91, 92 was the first Premier League season. And off we went, off and running. And certainly for 20 years, it was fantastic. Yeah.
And then you move on from Sky, do a stint at TalkSport.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Yeah, before your existing gig with beIN Sports over in Qatar. How has that been for you? Brilliant.
Honestly, Gary, Keezy and I they couldn't have been better to us. They couldn't have looked after us any better. We see 380 live Premier League games every year, Keezy and I. You know, every single Premier League game is live on beIN Sports, everyone. Yeah. And we are there for most of them. So we're busy, as you can imagine, watching all these games and seeing all the football. And the coverage is excellent. They do a good job. We're a small band of brothers and sisters, not many of us, but there's a small band there that do an amazing job behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera as well. And it's been really good. I've really enjoyed it. I didn't know what to expect. You know, you hear horror stories of certain countries until you've actually visited them. You never know. But I have to say that, you know, our contracts are due up on the summer of 2023. And I think we have the contract for the Premier League till 2025. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure if they wanted to keep us there for a couple of more years, I'm pretty sure that Richard and I would have no thoughts about jumping ship and leaving. It's been really good, honestly, Gary. And with the World Cup, you know, always on the horizon, you know, it's Qatar's for a tiny little country. It's just amazing that, you know, what it does and how it achieves its status in the world. It's extraordinary how it goes about it, and sport is massive for it. You know, they've had the World Championships, athletics in Qatar. I think it was last year. Yeah. And I hear them talking about it in the Olympics when they say, yeah, he came first in the World Championships in Qatar in 2019. And you think, you know, it's a tiny little place, but it's such a big stand. And the World Cup, in my opinion, will be sensational.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be, you know, lots of complaints about having to move the dates and the temperatures and things like that. If you look back at some
Forget the temperatures. Gary, honestly, this is what I'm saying. It's misinformation like that around the world that annoys people who live there and work there, because the temperatures in November and December in Qatar will probably peak in the daytime at maybe 24, 25 at a push. Yeah. And at night time, they'll drop to about 17, 18 degrees for night games. So the temperatures will be perfect to play football. Stadiums are all state of the art. You don't have to travel. The players will be in 2 planes during the tournament, the one they fly in on and the one they fly out on. Right. Apart from that, they only travel between the grounds and the hotels. The maximum travel will be half an hour.
Oh, wow.
That's it, half an hour. from where the hotel will be based, the furthest ground would be half an hour away. And it's going to be such a compact World Cup. And it's going to be played at a time in the year, Gary. Think about this. We've always bemoaned the fact that we've talked about it. I think we talked about it in Windsor. You know, at the end of seasons like that, people are knackered. The players are knackered. They get to May, they're shattered. And then they've got to go and play in the biggest tournament in the world, the World Cup. And you can even see a bit of that at the Euros. Players who were tired and fatigued had taken it out of them. This World Cup's going to come 3 months into the season. So the players will be in amazing physical condition. Hopefully, none of them will have got injured. And I think they're going to bring a level of fitness to the tournament that they've not been able to take to World Cups previously because of the demand of a full season, whenever they've been playing. So I think that's going to be a huge bonus to a lot of players in a lot of countries.
Yeah, I agree. So back to the Hall of Fame. When we chatted at the beginning of May, and I got your permission to proceed with it, you know, I immediately contacted David Edgar over at Heart and Hand, Stevie Clifford at Four Lads Had a Dream, and their good friends over at ORSA to say, listen, this is a situation. They were equally as shocked as I was that the situation had gotten to the fact that it still hadn't happened yet. And immediately, to a person or to an organisation, I guess you could say, they immediately said yes. We contacted the Football Hall of Fame, got an overview of what the process is, and it was actually very easy. It was just an email. We put together the career highlights that I mentioned a wee bit earlier, formally submitted it with everyone on tow, and they were very kind about getting back to us quickly to say, we're still in the pandemic. We don't know when we're going to have the next induction ceremony, but just to confirm that Andy is on the list and you know, we will be in touch. What I didn't get a sense of, to be honest, was, right, what happens now? Who decides? You know, because it's a fan-led initiative to get someone on, or a nomination, you know, to get the nominations on there. So who decides? Because back to the point you were saying earlier, if it's on football achievements, this should be literally the easiest thing I've done the whole year. Because I sent some facts and they say, not sure what happened before. Yes. I wonder what will happen. Like, how confident are you as we chat here today that it's going to get through? We don't know the timelines yet, you know, so let's just say.
Well, no, I'm not confident. The only reason I'd be more confident, and say I had done this, say a couple of my friends had done what you guys have done and got the form and submitted it, I would be zero confident that it would get through. I think because of the weight that you guys have, and they will know that you know, that's heavyweight support coming my way. It still wouldn't make me 100% sure that they would say yes. And that's what I've always said to you: is there, you know, is there an ulterior motive behind it? And if there is, what? Why? What? You know. So I'm more confident that they might think that I deserve to be on it. But am I 100% confident? No way. No, I mean, for whatever reason, you know, whether it's the fact that I've been ignored for so long, whether it's the fact that my trophies have been in a cupboard for a while, I don't know. I don't know what it is, you know, because all I've ever been is a proud Scot. Lucky to play football and represent his country and be very proud to do that. And just try to do my best everywhere I've been in that respect. So, you know, it's up to them. And seriously, if it doesn't work, then I will just forget it. As I said to you, Gary, it was only the fact that my son was so disappointed that his dad wasn't on it when he looked at the list of people who were on it, who have achieved far less than I have. And that's no disrespect to them. I'm not saying they don't deserve to be on it. That's not what I'm saying. But that's what my son felt like. You know, there's players there, Dad, that have achieved half of what you've achieved or less. And you know, why are you not? And I said, well, I can't answer that, son. I really can't. But maybe with you guys' support, Gary, that they'll at least have to give us an answer one way or the other. Yeah.
Open for. Yeah, so just to quickly turn over to NARSA, as I mentioned a couple of times, you joined us and did a great job with the MC in 2019. We finally managed to get you because it was a number of years that we'd been talking.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, thanks. I wasn't, with the greatest respect to Windsor, which meet you guys lovely, but the ones I couldn't make were Vegas and LA. So come on.
Well, So I don't know what your schedule looks like, but the next one we're having to celebrate 50th anniversary of Barcelona 72 and the 150th anniversary of the club, and of course our 56th title is in Las Vegas again. So I'll send you the dates, and if you're
Send me the dates.
free, you're more than welcome. This is going to be this hands down be the biggest one we've ever put on. There's going to be thousands there this time.
That was great. I loved it. It was great to be with like-minded people. It really was. It was brilliant. And Goffey and I still phone Goffey in San Diego where he is, and still chuckle away about it. Yeah, it's good. No, it's good to see so many people who, as I say, like-minded people who have one thing in common. We're all Rangers fans.
Yeah. What was your main highlight from being there over the course of the days that you were there? Please don't say my dad puking when we were golfing that day.
No, well, that was one of the highlights, definitely. Did I take the money that day, by the way? Did we take the money?
No, I never.
What?
No. We don't see. Like maybe we will have given you the money that day. We do that with all the VIP guests. It doesn't correlate with the golf.
I tell you what. I didn't have one particular highlight because I didn't know what to expect when I got there. And for me, the whole trip was a highlight. From coming in and meeting the guys and then meeting everybody there and going to the dinners and what have you, and going out and meeting everybody. The whole thing just merged into one for me. It was just one big highlight. I couldn't say to you, though, there was a definitive point where that was better than the rest because everything was fantastic. I loved it. I loved the whole trip. I couldn't get enough of it. It was great to see the boys again, Big Marvin and Goffey and the rest of the guys. It was brilliant. And so it was just one big highlight for me, Gary. It really was. And having not been able to go for those years, I suddenly realised what I'd been missing as well. It was great. It's fabulous. Yeah.
Well, here's hoping we get to see you in Vegas.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice.
So I'm going to do a bit of a quick fire round that we do with all of our guests. Just the first thing that comes to your mind here for each of these questions. I'm going to start off with hopefully an easy one. Who's the best player you've ever played against?
Wow. You mean directly against?
Yes.
Wow. Oh, you've hit me there. The best player I've ever played against. Mine's working overtime. The best combination I played against, I think, was Colin Todd and Roy McFarland when they played for Derby way back. And when I first went to England in the 70s, they were magnificent as a duo. They were just brilliant. They were footballers. They weren't hatchet men. Obviously, I played against people like Kenny Burns, Kenny and I had many a set to, and many fist offs. Oh yeah. That was fun. That was fun. But no, I mean, Tony Adams was tough. A young Tony Adams, I played against him a couple of times. He was tough. But it's funny, Gary, because I never went into a game thinking, I don't like playing against you. I'm not going to get anything today. I've always quite fancy. I might not have played well, and he might well have dominated me, whoever it was. But I've never had any preconceived ideas when I walked onto a pitch that if I was walking on to play against Alan Hansen and Mark Lawson, did I think they were great players, but I liked against them because I could bully them. I was more physical than they were, and they didn't like it. So and they should have mopped me up and just ran me all over the pitch. But I used to get into them big time, and I like playing against people like that. So I think McFarlane and Todd was the best combination I played against. They were sensational.
Nice, excellent. Who has been your favourite ever Rangers player in history?
Jim Baxter.
Nice, great. And you kind of might have answered this in the first question. Who is the player that you most hated playing against?
Well, I'll tell you that. There is one that's just come to mind now. There was a centre-back who played for Sunderland, Manchester City in England called Dave Watson. Now, Dave was one of these centre-backs where I could smash him, batter him, butt him, kick him, never flinched. Just stood there, took it and came back. And I thought, he was good enough to play for England on more than one occasion. But he was probably the one that I thought, I'm going to have to play really well to get anything from him today. He was tough. I found Dave a tough cookie. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What's your favourite song ever?
Purple Heather, Rod Stewart.
Ah, we don't get to say Rod Stewart on a Rangers podcast.
I know, forget that. Purple Heather by anyone.
I love it. I love it. What's the last film that you watched?
Oh, last night, The Greatest Showman.
Oh, Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman. Watched it last night in the house here. My father-in-law was over again visiting us, and I've seen it before, but Rachel and I had seen it, but Alan had never seen it, and he loves that. So we said, shall we watch The Last Showman? So the last movie I watched was last night, The Last Showman.
Nice one. Excellent. Okay, so just as we wrap up here, Andy, what can we expect to see from you over the next wee while? I was actually going to ask about the lead up to Qatar. Assuming that beIN Sports has similar types of rights to the World Cup, you're going to get access to guests and games and analysis and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, even if you take it the Euros, I remember sitting one night, Keezy was at one end of the table, I was at the other, and I looked in between us, and sat in between us was Peter Schmeichel, Ruud Gullit, Arsene Wenger, Gianfranco Zola. And I looked at Keezy and I went, we're all right. We're all right. So that's the kind of guests we'll have at the World Cup. These will be the guys who will come back and who come back regularly. That's just the basis of it. Obviously, the World Cup, and with the pandemic easing, we hope that we'll be getting in a multitude of stars as well. That's what we'll try and do, and we'll try and present it in the way we've always done. We're very conversationalist at times. We believe people like to hear what Wenger wants to say, and what Zola, and what Schmeichel, and what Gullit. We always think that, if there's things to analyse, I'll do that, and we'll do that. But as you know, sometimes at half time, if it's 0-0, I watch TV in other places, and they just put in highlights of the first half. It's 0-0, nothing happens, and they're just there to fill time. Yeah. Whereas we'd rather fill time by talking to Arsene Wenger or Gullit or Zola or Schmeichel about various things. That's just the way we work. So we're a little bit different in that respect. But we're building up nicely to it. I'm looking forward to it very much. I can't believe when we went there, it was 10 years that the World Cup was away, and now it's only 18 months. It's really exciting. The country's buzzing, really. I mean, Qatar itself as a football team, I don't know if you would have noticed over your neck of the woods, we're really unlucky. And was it the Gulf Cup recently? Just finished?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, the USA beat them 1-0 with a penalty. 1-0. No, they beat them 1-0 in the semi-final. And I have to say, Qatar battered the US.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, they battered them. Seriously. Yeah. They got through to the semi-finals, and then I think the US played Mexico in the final. So they've done really well. And people in the States who thought, what is this Qatar, this little nation? They're not very good. I think they've got a different view of Qatar now, because the lads played so well and were so unlucky not to beat the States. They missed a penalty as well, Qatar at 0-0. Couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this has been great. From a highlights and Windsor perspective, just mentioned Ruud Gullit there. That I remember when we were playing golf that day, and I just said, he's been a big hero of mine for a long time, and you tried to phone him, and I remember that. Tried to take time, and he says, "I'm driving," and he hung up, and then you tried him again, and he just kept hanging. Just safe driving, but I'm like, oh, I'm going to just answer this one time. I just want to say hello.
That's typical of him as well, driving. I'm surprised he usually gets driven everywhere, never mind driving. Big man.
Maybe that's what happens. I won't take up too much more of your time. I just want to thank you once again, and wish you all the very best in the upcoming season and the last couple of years of your contract. And we will definitely keep on top of this Scottish Football Hall of Fame nomination. I'll probably plug it again a wee bit, around about September time, just to make sure they don't forget about us.
No problem. No
media presence.
No, listen, I appreciate it, Gary. Honestly, I really do. And as I say, it'd just be nice to get a definitive. If they turn around and say, sorry, whatever Andy achieved isn't good enough, he doesn't warrant being in the Hall of Fame, then that's fine. We can move on with life then.
Yeah, I have to admit, I'll have a wee bit of a hard time moving on if they say those words, but we'll cross that. We come to it.
Anyway, the good news is we've started well. Victory for us, defeat for them. Oh, I hope the league's not won already, is it?
What a weekend. I'm starting to get, I'm just going to leave all the bunting up in my house that I've got here, because I think I need it again quite soon.
Oh, it's great. I mean, what a start. It was a brilliant start of the weekend, wasn't it? Tremendous. Absolutely different class. Yeah, I text Gary Mack after the game just to say, well done, great start, all the best. So I hope 56 is on its way. That would be nicer.
Yeah, fingers crossed. In fact, I don't even think it is fingers crossed. Unless something catastrophic happens, I can't see it.
Good. No, we're really good. I think we're in a state now where, you know, Stephen and the boys have really, I think, done a sensationally good job. Recruitment's been really good, which is very important when you're trying to win things and build things. And I just think that it's even now, and it might be stupid of me to say this, but I don't think it is. I mean, it's ours to lose. It's as simple as that for me, because I think we're the best team by some distance in Scotland at the moment, by some distance. Yeah. So, and I think that, I don't think they will. There's only complacency or something like that I think are terrible injuries to top players. But even then, we showed last year we could cope without, we lost Tavernier for a number of games, and everyone thought, oh shit, that's going to be a big loss. It wasn't. People like Nathan Patterson came in and did brilliantly. So no, I'm without being overconfident, Gary, I am confident we've got 56 coming up.
Me too. I share the exact same. So one last quick question before you go. How many spare rooms do you have in Qatar for me and the boys to come over for the World Cup?
Honestly, my phone has been like that. You're right. That I could have a 20-room hotel right now as a house. That wouldn't be enough. It wouldn't be enough. And there will be people sleeping in my floor for that month. There's no doubt about that. There's absolutely no doubt. But you get yourself there, son, and I'll always find room for you. You're
a good man. I really appreciate it, Andy. Thanks a million.
Gary, thanks a lot. Good to see you. Talk to you soon.
Cheers. Bye.